Love him or hate him, President Trump is certainly making people pay attention to him, and some might argue that's exactly what he wants. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. The Nintendo Switch 2 pre orders were put on an indefinite hold by Nintendo the other day, talking about how they're not sure what's happening with the tariff war and how it might cost even more than they were expecting, so they just put a pause on pre orders. Well, it looks like, based off of what President Trump has enacted recently, it's going to open the doors for Nintendo to put the pre orders back up and hopefully save people a bunch of money. I'm just kidding about that second part. This is Nintendo. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out smashjt.com for the full article talking about how Donald Trump has signed a 90-day pause on the tariffs to ease concerns and put the market back into some place of normalcy. Because holy crap, for a minute there, kind of felt like stocks were trading like crypto. In a sudden, almost out of the blue, high stakes pivot move, President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping rollback of tariffs, an unexpected move that might have just cleared the path for the long anticipated launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 in the United States, and Canada for that matter too, because if you missed that story, Canada also paused their pre-orders because they didn't want people importing them to Canada and then buying them and bringing them to America, I guess. Nintendo's being very particular about how people are allowed to get access to a Nintendo Switch 2. But hey, Nintendo being Nintendo. For days, the community has been a tad on edge after Nintendo of Japan stated that they were pausing US pre-orders for the Switch successor, citing uncertainty around Trump's escalating tariff policy. The situation appeared even more dire when country-specific import duties reached upwards of nearly 50% in some regions, threatening to jack up the launch price of the console or delay it entirely. Where there are rumors starting to float around where 50% more of $500, we're talking $750 before sales tax out the door for a Switch 2 if this came to fruition. But as of today, those concerns seem to have been completely lifted. Trump has officially signed an executive order implementing a universal 10% tariff rate across all countries. Well, except China, because come on, you think China's gonna play nice with the US these days? China now faces a whopping 125% tariff rate, and according to the White House, this is all part of a 90-day plan to rebalance trade relationships and quote unquote cool the panic. Nintendo hasn't made any formal announcements as of yet, but I'd imagine that logistics talks with Nintendo have now resumed with retailers across the country, and while the console's price likely isn't going to be reduced, let's be honest, it's Nintendo, this move helps ensure that it won't be inflated, at least due to government policy. That's a win for gamers right now, but the bigger concern is whether Nintendo, which has been facing serious growing criticism for their increasingly profit-driven approach, especially when it comes to game prices and the $79.99 USD price tag on Mario Kart World, setting the standard for many AAA titles on the Nintendo Switch 2, is not something that is being taken well by gamers across the board. Nintendo has come under fire in recent years for anti-consumer practices, locking content behind paywalls, selling underwhelming remasters at full price, slapping premium tags on hardware refreshes. I mean, the list really goes on. And now, the company's recent decision around lack of communicating the pricing to gamers during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct was the last straw for many people. I see a lot of people out there throwing their hands up saying, all right, I got my Switch, I'm going to move on to a Steam Deck. I'm going to move on to a Rogue Ally. I'm going to move on to PC gaming now because I can't stand how much Nintendo is pricing gamers out of the gamer market. And yet, despite the greed-flavored reputation, even Nintendo didn't want to mess with Trump's trade war whatsoever. The initial decision to pause US pre-orders on the Switch 2 was seen by many as a direct reaction to Washington. Trump's about-face on the tariffs comes just a week after market chaos and mounting criticism, including key financial allies like JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, who called the tariffs likely to cause a recession. And when Jamie Dimon stood up and said that, Trump took a step back and was like, oh, okay, maybe we do need to chill these a little bit. I don't want to completely throw the world into disarray by trying to have a trade war with these tariffs. And ever since that moment, it's kind of been like, okay, we're going to pull it back a little bit. The other countries started pulling back as well. And it seems like, at least for now, everyone except China has found some sort of common ground. And for those paying attention to the stock market today, specifically when this announcement came through, the retail stocks surged like crazy in the aftermath of the announcement. Oil prices were rebounding sharply, and everything was a clear indicator that the markets were breathing a gigantic sigh of relief, and everything was returning to some semblance of normalcy when it comes to pricing things in. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it's been a while since I've seen anything like this. It felt like the market was mistaking itself for cryptocurrency out there. For the gaming world, this could hopefully mean a smooth return to global shipping, fewer import headaches, and even more importantly, the ability to actually get our hands on the Nintendo Switch 2 sooner rather than later. That is, for anyone that's still interested in getting one. Because as the days carry on with this Nintendo Switch 2 fallout, the more I see people become less excited and interested in actually picking one up. And they're not just saying it either, at least from the sounds of it. Sure, people might be acting tough right now, being like, oh, I'm not buying that, and then go out and buy it anyways, which I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that do that. But by and large, people are just done with Nintendo. Until they have some sort of killer app that they just have to get the Switch 2 for, they're just going to chill on the original Nintendo Switch. Like people that were dying to get Metroid Prime 4, it's coming out on the original Switch. Could you use the upgrade on the Switch 2 and have it look a little bit nicer? I mean, I guess, but then it comes with less battery life, and you're paying through the nose to be able to play it on their next gen hardware. And that's not a very exciting proposition for people that are looking at this hobby as it's already getting out of control, too expensive, and now we got this to add to the mess. Why should I even bother? And I know the obvious follow-up is, well, Smash, are you gonna get a Nintendo Switch 2? Well, yeah, I do plan on getting one because, well, one, I have a YouTube gaming channel and I like Nintendo products, and I think people would like to know my thoughts and feelings on if it's worth getting a Nintendo Switch 2. So yes, for me personally, it makes sense to get one. But when people do not have their YouTube channels, do not care about doing this on a daily basis, and don't have any kind of motivation to showing other people what it is and if it's good or not, no, they're just fine with whatever they already have, or they want to go somewhere else. That's the general sentiment that I've been seeing across the board as of now. Could that change? Of course it could, but it's not off to the best start, we'll say, for Nintendo from what I'm seeing here. And I said on my live stream the other night, with all the mismanagement and miscommunication coming specifically from Nintendo of America and Doug Bowser, I would argue he is almost on the hot seat right now, ironically, as the Nintendo Switch 2 is being ready for launch, which is wild times, but it's kind of exposing someone who, in my humble opinion, is in over their head for a position that they just aren't prepared for. Like, honestly, looking back at Reggie Fils-Aimé running Nintendo, I never saw a situation like this. And when they did have problems, it was handled very clearly. The communication was there. Reggie would talk about these kind of things. There was an open line of communication with Nintendo. When they screwed things up with like the 3DS, they started giving back to people because they realized they were overcharging and not giving enough worth the benefit of what they were charging for. And now we find ourselves fast forward, 10, 15 years later, and Nintendo is in the same position right now and doing the same mistake that they've made already. Sure, they're going to make money hand over fist with the Nintendo Switch 2 when it launches. But as far as the staying power, I just don't think it's there. It's almost like they're trying to make the money off the launch with the expectation that they can actually put this console on sale potentially for like $100 off, and they'd still be making a profit off of it. Whereas the Nintendo Switch was set at $300 and really never ever went on sale, where Nintendo was just scraping by a profit with those. Nowadays, I'd argue they're making a lot more money because the price is set that much higher. Nobody expects Nintendo to be generous. Like, ever. But with Trump backing off the tariff gas pedal, it looks, at least for now, that US gamers might be spared the sting of any kind of tariff tax on their next console from Nintendo specifically here. But would Nintendo pass the savings on to consumers if there were any? No, I wouldn't hold my breath on that one, because everything I've seen coming out of Nintendo is, how do we squeeze even more money out of our customers? We want to maximize profits to the nth degree to ensure that we're getting every single penny we can out of every single sale to make sure that our investors are the ones at the end of the day that are truly the happiest ones out of everyone. The gamers, screw them. They'll buy our stuff no matter what we do, because we're Nintendo and you have to buy our stuff. I mean, we're Nintendo, right? Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. If you guys want more information, check out smashjt.com. I will link this article in the description below. If you appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, you stay smashing.
So tonight, we thought we'd take a closer look at a single product, Nintendo's hugely anticipated Switch 2 console, set for release June 5th. Nintendo has already sold 150 million Switches. The new version would be the first major gaming release since the tariff announcement. Smash